I don't have too many appointments on Sunday.
All right, good evening or afternoon. It is Tuesday, February 11th, 5 p.m., the Special City Council Workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you mind doing roll call?
Absolutely. Councilmember Myers?
Here.
Councilmember Bogosian?
Here.
Councilmember Pierce?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Councilmember Streetman?
Here.
Councilmember Hahn?
Here.
Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Pounds?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is citizens' comments.
Mr. Josh Hoosier?
Josh, sorry. Pull that out. Sorry about that. Is that okay? Bottle of water? Yeah, we good.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I asked a little bit late yesterday, so I appreciate you allowing me to talk. Last night on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, our Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, gave an hour-long speech that mentioned Isle of Palm several times. And if you didn't hear it, unfortunately, it was not in a good context. Representative Mace alleged that she was sexually assaulted while incapacitated in a home on Isle of Palms, and only found out because she accidentally came across a video recording of it several times. She then found photos of what appeared, unfortunately, it was not in a good context, to be a teenager undressed in the kind of underwear that a child would wear. She said the child looked nervous. She then discovered a hidden camera in a rental property on Isle of Palms, which allegedly contained 10,633 videos from just the one device. Congresswoman Nancy Mace encouraged women who may have visited rental properties on Isle of Palms to call or text a hotline, 843-212-7048. We don't know how many victims there are, but Representative Mace stated that some of the properties where these crimes allegedly took place are also listed on short-term rental sites like Airbnb, VRBO, and others managed by local property management companies for short-term rentals. So last night from the floor of the United States House of Representatives, our Congresswoman announced that there might be hidden cameras on short-term rental properties on Isle of Palms. The matter has been under investigation by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, since December of 2023. However, Representative Mace indicated that appropriate action has not been taken by the state government. I immediately contacted Isle of Palms Police Chief Kevin Cornett. I was happy to learn that Chief Cornett pledged to offer the support of the Isle of Palms Police Department to assist SLED in its investigation. So thank you to Chief Cornett for always being there to protect the vulnerable members of our community. Real men step up to protect women and children. As policymakers, the Isle of Palms City Council has the duty to pass laws to keep our community safe. According to Representative Mace, the laws in the state and local jurisdictions are inadequate to keep the most vulnerable members of our community safe from sexual predators. We have a vibrant short-term rental industry, and we have the opportunity to take the lead here. I encourage you to explore options with each other, the city attorney, the city staff, to ensure that Isle of Palms is responsive to these very shocking allegations from our congressperson. We must do everything we can to ensure that short-term rental companies and their owners inform guests if any cameras are present inside the homes where men, women, and children are in various states of undress going to and from the beach and the pool. I applaud Congresswoman Mace for being brave enough to come forward. I think the ball is now in our court as a city to take action, and I encourage you all to get to work. Thank you so much.
That's all.
Thank you. Next time, we have two special presentations tonight. I would make a motion that we reorder the agenda and let Lavello folks go first, and then as soon as the Community Enrichment Task Force finishes, we'll cover item 9A1. Is that good?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Chris, come along, mister. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's Chris Wynn from the Lavello team. They've been here and have met with Chief Cornett and other Chief O, kind of pre-planning for this year's event. So, Chris, again, thank you guys for being here again and letting us host for you.
We greatly appreciate the invite and the opportunity to speak. Our presentation this evening is very short and sweet in order to sort of leave room for any questions. Our goal is to host Lavello for the 7th time. Isle of Palms has been an unbelievably gracious host and finish line for this event for the Hollings Cancer Center. We had our biggest year last year, and while we can't always get our way with the weather that we had last year, the space, the location, the ability for folks to finish their ride coming down the Isle of Palms connector to the view of the Atlantic is a bit of a showstopper and part of the experience. So really what we're seeking tonight is for city sponsorship status, which again enables us to host the event in the parking lot across from the fire station. And, we had about 1,900 participants last year, and for the first time we crossed $1 million in fundraising. So it was a massive success. With hits or delays to NIH funding, we know for a fact that our cancer center, along with many other medical institutions, are going to become much more reliant, at least in the short term, on our own ability to fundraise as opposed to apply for grants. So we feel very strongly that we've got a good track record. We love this venue. We need to do the fundraising more now than ever, and we hope you'll have us back.
What's the date?
We're shooting for November 1st this year. We've historically been the first Saturday in November, so it's postseason. We know that there are some interruptions that come with having this many people out here, but we also hope it's a nice extension to the shoulder season. And really, we hope that, compared to some of the other events that are happening in other parts of the city, this is one that the residents of Isle of Palms could be proud to be hosting and can participate in, whether you want to ride a bike or you want to volunteer or you just want to set up in your front yard and cheer people on. It's a pretty amazing day.
Other questions for Chris? We'll take action later this month at our council meeting to so designate if you're inclined, but other questions? Chris, I would just give you guys some kudos. This event has grown, would you say 1,900 folks last year, riders? And the team's being pretty proactive in thinking through, how much bigger can it get between parking and the limitations that are on the island. So thank you guys for thinking ahead and involving both our chiefs to get in front of that. So thank you.
We can't do it without y'all. I mean, this is absolutely a team effort, right? And we feel very fortunate. We also feel very protective of that and want to make sure we're good stewards of not just Isle of Palms, but Hollings, our riders, safety, all the resources that come together to make this happen. So you do have packets and proposals like we've sent out. It is almost identical to what we submitted last year. And again, I know we'll be putting all of this to safety and fine-tuning routes and those details, but we are vested in making sure it works for the island.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. All right, next, graduation Tuesday for the Community Enrichment Task Force. This is awesome. This has been happening for over a year that this has been going on. Looks like bundt cakes were the item of choice for tonight, so that's a nice graduation gift. And I know we've got a lot of the task force members here. If you are here, if you want to raise your hand, stand, or whatever, just to let us show your appreciation for what happened. And Chandra's in the back as well. And I know this has been, David, what'd you say, a couple of 1,000 hours worth of effort on people's part?
Very much around 2,000 hours of work that this group has put in for this, and so we're excited to show it to you.
All 2,000 hours tonight, right here.
All 2,000 hours, step by step.
So tonight, David McNair is with us, who led this charge in conjunction with Explore Charleston and College of Charleston. So tonight is kind of an intro to the final report. It is meaty. There is a whole lot of information, and then we'll talk about next steps once David gets going through, and you'll see the new website and all the information. So, David, I'll let you have it.
Great.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quickly turn it over to two of our members who are going to represent the committee, but we'll start with one of them, Paige, who's going to set the tone. We'd rather you hear from some of the task force members that worked on this. As Paige stands, I also want to introduce Melanie Stith. Melanie is also an island resident here, but she has been working, I would say, the last maybe 3 months and been really instrumental part of the process as well from our end. So with that, Paige, thank you very much for kicking us off. Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Paige Grimble. I'm an island resident. And have been enjoying Isle of Palms since 1986, maybe a little earlier. Anyway, so I also want to really thank you and your dedication for involving us in this Community Enrichment Task Force. It shows me the dedication you have to the larger Isle of Palms community and to ensure that we are thriving from 2025 on. So as we have gathered and discussed and been sitting exactly where you are, although I think your chairs might be a little bit nicer. We started with the survey in 2023, and that data-packed information was then given to us. And what a volume of exciting news, right? But what we did figure out in who we are as a diverse group, what makes an Isle of Palms community, right? We're businesses, we're business leaders, we're full-time residents, we're part-time residents, we're vacationers, we're day trippers, we're people who choose our vocation to be on Isle of Palms. And all of that makes our community work. So this data-packed survey from 2023 gave us a lot of information, and we were quite humbled before it to tackle this with David's leadership, which has been amazing, to provide, I hope, some amazing resource information where there was a lot of research, not just a lot of meetings. Although we had about 20 meetings sitting right where you are, face to face, and I'll tell you, no one wanted to miss a meeting. People had COVID or whatever, they would be on that Zoom site with their ear. Maybe they were in Dubai? No, somewhere across the world, and they would be a part of this meeting. So it was very important. You had a lot of passion at that table, a lot of ideas, but more importantly, a lot of heart. So we also found ourselves going outside of the community, not just in this room. We reached out to other beach communities similar to ours. We reached out to agencies within South Carolina, within Charleston County, our own Isle of Palms agencies and what we do well, what's worked in the past, looked at past reports. We've done a lot of digging, and I'm also very humbled to see some of the talent and the richness that sat at this table. That was not just a lesson for me, but also a lot of learned information that some things, you learn something new every day with this crowd. Anyway, it is an enormous document, but it's a good document. And so in having that, we've broken it down into several different pieces, and David and Melanie are going to tell you about it. But none of that would have happened without their leadership. So I know I speak for my friends and neighbors. We'd like to say thank you to Chandra, to David, and to Melanie for their leadership in all of this, and for your trust that you've put into us. So we hope that this information is useful and helpful. And I know we're all available. I hear a rumor that about 6 months we might be gathering again for margaritas, so you never know. Thank you so much for having us, truly.
Thanks, Paige.
Gosh, what a great introduction to it. If nothing else, I think you can feel the content, the dedication, the passion that went into this process. So as she said, it's large. I want to set clearly what we're going to do in a brief period tonight, because we do not expect to cover all aspects of the plan in this workshop. It's something you're going to want to have access to and scan through and really dive into. So what we want to do is frame it, give you a walkthrough on the site itself so that you can be familiar with it, and then allow you that time to really dig into it. I will say, and I think we mentioned this at our last update we did in the fall, this has culminated through selecting 4 distinct areas that will make the island rich. We have built this specifically to align with your strategic plan. So we look at the strategic plan to say, how can this only strengthen through more research, more data to actually build out, how do we put into action items from your strategic plan? So I hope you find that alignment throughout. So last comment of structure is to say, we've probably all been through a building process of a house. We went to the architect, we designed the house, we have the rooms decided, we've built and trimmed them out. We are literally 2 shades of paint colors in some of those rooms. So I want to say, as you look at this as a working site, some of the shades of paint colors in the recommendations I'll mention may shift slightly. and then we're going to consider it final, ready for publication when you're ready for publication. But just to let you know, that's kind of where it is. If you look at the site on the screen with you, we open, as one should, and we looked at other sites that have tackled these same sorts of things, all with this distinct mission of how do we ensure this island is protected and the integrity of the planning to lead it towards a desired state. So it opens with the letter to the mayor, and I want you to see the ease of navigation. Just as Melanie scrolls down through, you have the letter to the mayor. There are some hot links to the survey data if somebody wants to go right to it. And then we go to the executive summary that briefly discusses the process itself. Again, hot links that can be there. And then it drops us down into 4 tiles. So if we can just scan down to those 4, this is where you learn about the information. Safety, quality of life, environmental, seasonal impacts, and we wanted to put parking and traffic there because that's what the bulk of it surrounds, and so it's easy for somebody to see. Always through the site, on the right-hand side, you will see the same menu of the 4 areas. We have a couple of other things there that we'll touch on in just a little bit, but we'll have things like the summary of all priorities and goals, the summary of all recommendations in the full report. Some people would like to just go to a link, look at an entire PDF. They don't want any other aspect of it. They just want to get to the substance. So we've helped build the site to navigate it easily for that. But for the moment, if we go into one, and let's just, I'll let you pick, Melanie, what you want to go for today. Let's just look at quality of life. So all you do is click on the icon itself. May need that arrow up just a tad, yeah. And you'll see it takes you to that section. So again, in summary, across all 4 areas, there are actually 18 priorities. Those 18 priorities fold into, believe it or not, 49 different goals to be seen, which can sound overwhelming in numbers when you first look at it, but when you look at all the areas being covered, it makes a lot of sense. Each one of those goals will have recommendations, and the recommendations title just under 200 recommendations. But when we say built out of data with specificity, this is what we're talking about, and you can kind of see the ease of the navigation of the site. So whichever area you go to, you'll find the same thing. If you'll pause on our wonderful sea turtle, maybe when you scroll down just a second. I want to mention also that, part of this for any reader is to continue to sense the feel of the island. And I would say you're very fortunate because Linda Tucker has offered her incredible photography. And I think you're on a license basis for fees every time it's clicked on or something?
Every click.
But even just imagining the hours of going through the photography to match to the content of the goals, to see that people feel the site and feel this island in that desired state that you want it to be, they're woven throughout the site itself. So if you just look at each project, no matter where you go, you can say, I want to look at communications, or I want to look at what we're talking about in traffic. You can go to the area easily, hit your recommendations, and see specifically what is there. So what I'd like to do now is just show them the table, because I want to talk about the flow of the site and how the information can well be used. So each of the priorities and goals is summarized in a table such as this, and what it provides are 2 very important columns. One, where is it that we're going to have an owner or action item take place, and what is the status of that so that people can be kept current with it. So every single one of these, both in alignment with the strategic plan, but also in alignment with your standing committee structure, there is a place where these recommendations should flow for their consideration and data that they can use. So in other words, it's providing an awful lot of background and work as decisions are made there. We have an ask of the council, and that is when any standing committee is presenting recommendations on behalf of the strategy of the island or that impacts any of these key areas, we should hold accountability. Have you looked at the data provided by the IOP Thrives Community Enrichment Plan? Because there's a lot in there to be directed. Staff is also working to make sure that that information gets forwarded to those committees. so that there is a process by which it comes on a timely basis to you as recommendations flow. So that's just wanted to show you the overview of the site, how it works, the accountability that's involved. And one of the things that we would really ask for in this is that at about 6 months, at what we're going to call our margarita party, we want to come back together as a task force and review how is it working? How is the flow of information going? Are there status updates? And things just to, because you can imagine for the last 10 months of work that these 13 people have put into this with a lot of heart. We just want to ensure that that accountability stays there for all the good work that's in the plan. So with that said, the only other comment that I'll share, just for as any other comments may be made in the open discussion, we worked from the outset to have everything be on what we called supermajority consensus. As you can imagine, the diversity of thought that goes into this planning, when you have 13 people around representing, the businesses to tourism to traffic to whatever subject we're on, environmental and safety. So at times there are shades of differences, and I would call them shades from what my objective is. But there may be where one person wants to explicitly call out a particular area and another person thinks that may be too much detail at the time or something of that nature. And so we use supermajority decision process that if we get there, it takes 70% of the overall task force to say, are we ready to move forward with this or not? So that we could keep things kind of plugging forward. So there are things, and the thing I want to compliment of these representatives of the task force, we asked them specifically not to sit in that seat as an individual, but to sit in that seat as representative of others in their community. And every one of them is connected to different areas of the community. So if their seat is there to represent a larger voice than their voice, they did that extremely well. But if something doesn't hit a supermajority passing, it can be very disturbing, and most of you can probably understand that representation, right? You're there to represent and do your best work. So to say there are items that sometimes there wasn't 100% consensus, that's what happens when you bring good, diverse groups together. But I think you heard in Paige's opening, the spirit of the group has been amazing. The dedication to their work has been amazing, and the output of their work is pretty amazing. So let me pause there. I'm going to do a double check. Have I missed it structurally? Anything in your mind? Guys, is that a good overview for where we are before discussion? Okay. So, Mr. Mayor,
Wow.
turn it back to you.
Yeah, a lot of work. We've had two resident groups kind of going for the bulk of 2024, this one and the Beach Ad Hoc Preservation Committee, and it's been great opportunities for residents to dig in and learn, for council as well as residents. So again, thank you, Task Force. It's this is meaty. 6 months seems a little aggressive, but hey, it's okay. We'll see where we are after the 6 months. But
Don't expect it done. Just progress.
questions or thoughts or?
How do we get a copy of the report?
Great. So we're going to provide the working link that's on this site. This is all in the new Isle of Palms website format. So right now it's in a working till it's absolutely deemed as this is final and you all feel good to pass it. So we will be providing that link so that you can go in and go through it just as we've scanned it tonight.
What was the timing again on finalizing the output?
So we're going to have the very final, in terms of the nuances, anytime between the next week to probably the next 2 weeks at the most. And then it's a matter of your review and just when you're ready to post and go live.
So you would not make it, make it live until you get some kind of a council approval of it? Is
I
that
think you
correct?
should. Yeah, I mean, that would be my view. I think the council should deem that this is good work. You convene the committee and ready to publish. If you have key questions, we can always come back for those.
What do you think, John? Just clarifying or?
Yeah, I'm just clarifying, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I don't know if there's much action that the council can take at this point until we get a final
Right.
thing. Then I think we need some time to go through that. Like you said, it's pretty lengthy, so we need some
Right.
time to go through it before we have any meaningful discussions about it.
Yeah, and John, I hope each of you will go through it with the mindset of understanding the content and the substance and how it flows through the working committees and attaches to the strategic plan. I think that's the concept, and if it does that, then I think it works well.
So you did your best to kind of locate a home for each of those priorities based on our current structure.
Correct.
Is that right? And it may or
Correct.
may not be correct based on.
Right.
But, so that's part of the approval process, I think.
That is
the council
correct.
would go through.
So 200 recommendations coming to council would be overwhelming. But coming through the standing committees as those topics are being addressed is really a great recommended flow.
David,
Scott?
how does this tie in? You said it feathers into our strategic plan. Is there a mapping of that document to our strategic plan? And also, we've got a
great question.
comprehensive plan that has a very similar structure of the goals, objectives, et cetera, with, I don't know, 100 recommendations and tasks and such. How are we to ensure, one, we don't have redundancy, two, we have
Right.
prioritization, three, you're talking about the accountability, putting another 200 on top of what we have in our strategic plan and our comprehensive and our local beach management plan is, it's a lot of plans.
It's a lot of plans.
So I guess my
So
question
get
is,
busy.
and plans are great, but,
Yeah.
the rubber hits the road when we implement. And
Right.
who's going to do that? Have you reconciled all these documents?
I really think Douglas is going to handle that for us.
I could feel this coming. I had a sense.
What I would say in seriousness is the work that the task force has done looked at a lot of those plans, and this goes into some specificity that should support those as they work. We have not cross-mapped that comprehensive plan. We have cross-mapped not on the website, but the strategic plan, and it's a easy direct flow. You can just look at your priorities on the strategic plan and say, wow, I can go here and find more detail there. We thought about, I love your question, because we thought about, we put an indicator that somehow links it back to the strategic plan, priority number X, but it starts to get complicated in terms of how many things link to something. So I think the strategic plan is pretty self-evident when you look at it, the other very detailed comprehensive.
And the only reason I'm cognizant of it is it seems like it's going to be laid on our plates to implement. And where do we prioritize as a council? Strategic plan, comprehensive plan is a required document that we need to follow.
Yeah.
And how are these going to conflict for resources and things of that nature, and who's going to actually do the work?
So Scott, I guess I would add to that end, and we've talked a little bit about this, the fact that the Planning Commission is at a point to push up the comprehensive plan review. From a scheduling standpoint, it was ready at the end of last year, been kind of pushed off a bit because of other things conflicting with it. We also have this sea level rise adaptation plan that's so you're gonna have sequentially this plan hit. We are thinking that in next month, the sea level rise adaptation plan is going to hit, and then the month after that, the comprehensive plan is going to come to you. I guess the downside of that is to your point, there's a lot of plans, a lot of priorities. I think the good portion of that is a lot of it is layered and kind of the same and similar priorities. So when you're kind of digging down on an issue, you're going to have the benefit of, in some instances, you're going to have 3 different plans giving you guidance, recommendations for the council to kind of put that together, come up with your consensus, and set that issue aside, and we'll address that in each of the plans. That this was addressed in this way, but you're gonna have a lot of kind of information coming at you at the same time, but a lot of it's overlapping.
Did the committee, did you all prioritize? I mean, 200 is, I can't deal with more
Yeah.
than 3
Right.
at a time. On my to-do list, do we have a mechanism to prioritize all these recommendations?
I think when you
Comes out
read
on
them,
that.
and I would love to open it up if appropriate for any of the task force members in the thinking on this, because of the way it's divided and broken down by priority and goal, there may be 2 or 3 recommendations per goal. Some are short-term and could be a fairly easy implementation. Some are longer-term and could take resources, so those obviously are going to take more thought. But as it breaks down in the areas, it's not like somebody's feeding 200 recommendations. If you're dealing with something environmental, it may be this set of recommendations. And hopefully, as, again, staff looks at it and standing committees look at it, they're going to look at that data and come to you with very specific recommendations. Our goal was to ease the burden on this group by flowing through natural frameworks rather than saying, here's 200 recommendations, I hope you implement them all. Hope that makes sense. But I think when you navigate it, it really, when you get it by piece part, it's not very overwhelming.
I'll hold until I get a chance.
Yeah. But it's an excellent point. There's a lot of planning.
So Douglas, why don't we skip to the 9A1 and kind of talk about next steps on the recommendations? And I know, Scott, to your question, it won't.
Can I do this as
Yep.
you jump to that?
Absolutely.
One other member of the task force, Ben Marks, we've asked if just would kind of summarize for you what he gained and kind of the direct ask of the task force that work for council.
He's got 18 pages. Come on, Ben.
Yeah, I was surprised to be a part of this in the first place. Still haven't figured that out. And I normally am extemporaneous, but I thought I would write this out since it was important enough, although I will say, Scott, that we try not to be prescriptive, right? Because we were doing this all with the context that you all have a lot of irons in the fire, that there are many competing priorities, and that you're trying to fit our work into this overall, long-term plan. So really, if we've hit the mark right, this should be complementary to darn near everything that you're doing, right? We're basically trying to say, hey, what's the foundation, what's the representative sentiment that we can come up with that we think satisfies, the mindset of this community. So, I mean, I know I've been here for 20 years, and I was amazed when I jumped on this committee task force by the diversity of thought and background and sort of time of life. I was thinking, like, how can we get not you, but Siri wasn't involved. I was wondering how we could, how would we get anything done, really? So, I mean, it was very capable administration from the McNair Group, right? Yeah. And really, though, it's just this. The character of people that we get out here is such a privilege to work with. I hope you all feel the same. I mean, I know you all never have to deal with conflict or difference of opinion amongst yourselves, but we have so many different backgrounds represented, and so many different parts and pockets of the island, that it was fascinating to watch this from a group psychology perspective, just to see us arrive very often at true consensus. In the literal sense of the word, if not just a supermajority of opinion. So everyone picked their area. They focused on what was important to them. We really got to drill. We tried to do the hard work so that you all don't have to, so that hopefully when you review this, the expectation is that you'll get a sense that, okay, hey, if we need to think about a topic in any of these key areas, if we're considering whether it's part of the strategic plan or something new that happens, you could say, hey, let's go back to this document. Let's go back to this body of work, and we can feel if we're operating from we take this as the basis for what action we take, whatever we want to say out in public. Then we know we're you're discharging your duty to represent the hearts and minds of the people in this community, right? So that is how I would frame this, and really I would stress that. We didn't really discuss this, I think, but I think everyone on this committee would be more than happy, in fact, maybe even eager, some of us, to provide context to provide specific answers depending on our little subgroups that we worked on. We're happy to do this. This was one of the most rewarding experiences of my 20 years here, like right under bartending at the Jammer. So, and I do want to stress one more thing. Paige, of course, did an excellent job of framing everything, but we also, it's not just about the residents. We realize that our quality of life is inextricably linked to the quality of the visitor experience, whether they're here for the day, whether they're here visiting for a few nights, or they're here seasonally. We really, really want to make sure that we came up with work that represented, what works for them as well. So hopefully that you can keep in mind as you take a look at this. The way it's broken down should make it pretty digestible. You can get a quick hit in those tables, like, okay, here's what we got. And then we broke it out. If you want to drill in further, you can. You can actually follow pretty, hopefully, easily link in to the basis for why we came up with what we came up with. And then our recommendations, again, you'll see we're not saying like, hey, go out and do this, go out and do this. We're like, we think this is important to figure it out, and we trust you all to execute. Okay? Cool.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah.
Mayor, can I say something? I had a little time on my hands last year, so I attended a lot of these meetings. Got a chance to hear what was going on, and I've got to echo that the 13 people on this panel, along with David's leadership, I think they were as passionate as any group I've ever seen or heard. They had a lot of ideas, they talked about things, and they knew, and they did it in a context of knowing that there were going to be ideas that were 30,000 feet, and they drilled right on down to the micro level also. And I personally, even though I attended a lot of those meetings, I'm excited to look forward to digging into this report. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I think the challenge for us on council is going to be to take this body of work that they've done from this passionate group of individuals and really drill into it, try to see what we can do to digest the information, make it workable, and how we fold it in with the other committees that have been working, whether it be the Beach Advocates Group, the upcoming sea level rise adaptation plan. There's just a whole body of work here with a lot of information that I think can be extremely helpful for us on council. So my kudos to the group. I think you did a fantastic job. And I kept hearing, through the sessions that I attended, there was a fear that maybe it would be so much information that council eyes would glaze over and say, we've got too much here to digest. We just can't do it. But I think the way they've got it set up, I think it's going to be very useful for us, and that would just be my challenge to council, that we all take it very seriously and deal with this in the committee setting or however we feel is necessary to fold it in so it's compatible with their strategic plan. Thanks.
Douglas?
Yeah, so and we've talked about kind of next steps, and one of and Melanie put it up there for a second, kind of all of the summary of the of your kind of actionable items and the recommendations. What we would plan to do is take that matrix, kind of come up with an assignment of a subcommittee, or it could go to the Environmental Advisory Committee, could go to the Planning Commission, come up with a framework that we think would facilitate the next steps, and give that to you. Hopefully, you all could buy off on that, and then we'll just start going through the committee kind of goal by goal, and a lot of also what we'll be doing is identifying the kind of easy, quick, low-hanging fruit, kind of try to get some motion as quickly as we can. A lot of them are kind of long-range, directional initiatives that are just going to take time. So I think we'll just start divvying it up and moving each item forward as best we can.
So Douglas, is this placeholder right now? Is the assignment to be determined before it comes out to us?
I need my glasses, but yes, that is the draft. That's an example of the draft. The far right column is a time expectation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, status,
Yeah.
a status indicator, so that's very much what it will be. Filled in, and then we'll divvy it up and start on it.
Can we have access to this?
Absolutely. So that link to this very site will be provided to each council member while it's in working status, so you can have that time to go through. I would also just reiterate, the shades of anything that's going to change, no priorities and no goals are going to change. Some of the recommendations, it literally, we're down to like words of omission or adding in for final clarity, and just making sure the task force is very comfortable with that. You will not see substantive change of any kind from
We won't hold you to anything.
what's in the working site.
Sign here.
You changed an is.
Yeah. Scott, yeah, you good. Any other task force member like to say anything? Shocking. Paige, fire away.
And, you know, you may already have realized this, but I think it's important to point out that in this chart where it says status, I mean, that could be active, it could be in progress. I don't know that, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it's a great resource for us as community members to be able to see this when it does become, when it comes online. I don't think it's necessary, doesn't need to have an end date or a goal, or if it's completed, woohoo, you know, big old check mark. But I feel like that's important to point out for anybody who's looking to say that the status is really, is it active? Is it something that's actually being looked at that time, or, you know, so I don't know how clear that was.
Yeah, great point. I mean, if it says in committee review or has been presented to council, those are huge statements for the reader to know that it isn't just sitting there in a plan.
Ben, come on, man.
Just 10 more minutes. Again, not to be too prescriptive, but I think none of us would expect council to consider, like every council member to consider all of these things. Like, it probably makes sense for there to be one, you know, given the numbers, like 1 or 2 owners for each of these major topics. And you know, that way you have, that way each topic has representation. I mean, the problem, which I'm sure you all deal with many times during your tenure, is how do you deal with this just huge bolus of stuff without it seeming so overwhelming to become kind of paralyzed or you know, that you'd want to just push it off to the side. So I think if 1 or 2 folks, council members, wants to kind of take on each area, that could be an approach that might work.
Okay, now I do have to ask one more question. So any plan like this, yeah, I think what you'd want to do is to understand what's the resource, what's the timeline, what's it going to cost? Did you do any of that work? Did the committee do any of that for any of the recommendations?
I believe we left that up to council's very capable.
Is that something that if we wanted to ask for that we could potentially ask the committee to take a look at some point in time? Because, again, 200 recommendations, if the expectation is that this body's going to go through each one of these and resource them and price them and timeline them, again, with everything else we got on our plate, you said that at the very start, I think we've got to, you know, I just don't know how again, I'll go through this document, but
Again, the
that's a
hope,
critical
Scott,
piece.
is
Yeah.
that through the flow of these standing committees, when they see a recommendation that they believe they stand behind to recommend to council, that's when they would apply, what's the time frame, what's the dollar, what's the resources. It would not, in my mind, ever come to you all without somebody having given it that look and coming to you with that look. That would be overwhelming. So one of the structures was to go through the existing structures to do that. If there are recommendations at that point. So if a standing committee who is there to address that for council decides that recommendation doesn't apply because, and they have a valid reason for saying, I don't think we want to address that right now. No one wants to spend the time to look at, well, what are the resources to do that and so forth. If they're recommending that may not go forward. There may well be things in here that we discovered along the way as the learning process that there's already something in the works that speaks to this. So that'll be the easy, well, then let's fold it in together.
Yeah, I think that's my point. I think it's a little early for us to have any kind of opinion because we don't really know what's in here yet. But my hope would be that many of the items are things we're already working on and give some validation to the effort. But again, not knowing what's in there, it's hard to say where we should go or what we should do or who should be assigned what. I think you got to give council at least a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to kind of sort through and get our opinion about what's in here and how it fits with everything else we have and where it should go.
Kind of what's
That is
next.
the desire.
Yeah.
This was to inform and navigate, not to look for you to acknowledge we accept the plan.
Jan?
I think we just need to do some prioritizing on our
Agreed.
own, short, medium, long term. We don't have to drill down into the details of cost and timeline, except probably for short and maybe some medium-sized ones, and that makes it a manageable
Yeah.
product for us. Using the planning commission to maybe go through the comprehensive plan and match up things for us, using the environmental committee to take our beach renourishment project and match it up as well. Then we divide up the responsibilities and end up with something that we can handle.
Is that an action item to do that? I like that idea. Have the planning commission and environmental people go through it too.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
take the next
Oh,
couple of
everybody.
weeks. and
Every
do-
committee,
So let's do one last comment. Susan?
I
and we'll
was just
move.
gonna offer that oftentimes you'll find that the recommendations start with explore, evaluate, consider. Because even within our own group, we, didn't have all the details to say for sure that we expected you to do this particular thing. It was more that we want you to look into it and see if it's valid and doable.
And
Good.
a lot of discussion in the committee around that, for sure. Parting comments?
Not a bit. I would say data-driven, passion fueled. Thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. David, Melanie, thanks for the leadership. Chandra, thank you for everything. And Task Force, thank you again. Y'all are welcome to hang out here with us for another little bit, but you're welcome to run like the wind, too. So thank you guys for doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Douglas, let's get back. Dashboard of city operations and our STR report. And John, this is back in the main packet.
Yes, we're on page 3 of the packet. We've got the January dashboard, just a month in, so nothing really jumps out there. Would just mention that we do have 2 vacancies, showing 2 vacancies, chief and police.
He's on.
Is it 3? Is it 3 now, or is it still? So it's actually, it's in your packet is 2, it's actually 3. 1 paramedic vacancy, 1 firefighter vacancy. It's about, any questions on the operations dashboard? If not, go to the short-term rental sheet. This is remaining fairly flat. I think we added 6 short-term rentals this month. Again, we talked a little bit about last month how Jeannie is actively removing rentals as they go off the market. So it will be tough for us to kind of look at this year over year. But we have it, and it's staying relatively flat.
We'll be on another license year here shortly.
Yes, we
It seems
will.
like we just crossed that line.
Yep.
But this seems to be holding steady with the number of primary residents that we have on the island. The variation seems to be between part-time owners who don't rent and rental units. Is that right?
Yes, and I would just say that ownership data, we only change once a year. So we get that set from the county's data on their tax status,
In
and
the
then
fall.
short-term rentals coming in and going out, that's what's changing month to month.
But there are permanent residents that have rentals, but
That's
they're,
correct.
but they're
The
very
number-
few. It's a very small portion.
Right, the number of 6% and 4% properties is the same throughout, month to month, because we're only getting that data once a year. But
Okay,
yes, that's
thank you.
correct. We're updating the short-term rental aspect of each of those monthly. Deborah, you want to pull up here? Come.
And then just real quick, before we shift there, you've got departmental reports in your packet, and I know department heads are here if there are questions on those. Jimmy, quick question.
But let's be clear, but the short-term rental licenses issued are pretty flat from this year to last year to 2 years ago.
Yes, it's accurate to say.
No huge increases.
Next, we've got,
The only thing I'd like to say, and I talked to Chief about it, but on the police data, it seems that, we've got a significantly lower number of activity year over year. Both on the activity summary, but also on the offenses. So it's, and I think that just, after talking to Chief, I think part of the problem is the vacancies that we have. But that's something for us to put a priority on, I think, and the Chief is working on, but getting those filled.
yeah, but to your point, John, it's pretty significant
Yeah.
decrease year over year.
Yeah.
So next is financial review. We've got a number of pieces we need to hit tonight as we kind of kick off the budget season. And we need to schedule a workshop here before we finish up tonight at some point. But you've got all of this is in your packet. So Deborah, I'll let you take financial statements forward.
Okay, so we're 7 months into FY '25, and revenues are coming in at the same pace they were coming in at last year, slowly, but we should be able to meet our financial goals. The general fund is currently at 38% of what our budget is, and we should be at 58%. Expenses are at 54% of the current budget. There was an adjustment on BSOs. We had an employee that transferred that was in a BSO position and has transferred to the police department. So I think last month, BSOs were over budget, and that adjustment made them back in line. I have not done forecast. I have not reforecast anything yet because the revenues are coming in so slowly that it's kind of hard to predict if we're going to be over or under our budget, our current budget. I feel like we need some more data before I can reforecast, and hopefully that'll be next month to coincide with the budget presentation that you will receive at the budget workshop. We have $47 million in the account, 45 is in the investment. As you can see, the interest rate is steadily decreasing, but year-to-date, we have 1.2 in interest that we've earned. 178 of that was earned for January. There's
Question,
also-
please.
Sure.
So the total cash balance has increased approximately $4 million over the same period last year?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right, thank you.
Last counts workshop, Councilman Pierce asked that we show a breakdown of the overages in the marina based on the leases, and that is on page 2 of your schedule. The cash needs is just kind of show where we are and where those funds have been obligated for the year.
Then can I go back to the fund balances again?
Sure.
I guess if I'm looking at the general fund, for example, you got a cash balance of about 4 million, and you have a fund balance of about 2.7 million in the general fund. So I'm assuming there's some liabilities in there dropping the fund balances down, but can you explain that? It's the same thing for like capital projects. You got 15 million in cash, you got 13 million in capital funds. In total, if you look at all the funds, it's about $4 million lower on the fund balances side, which again would suggest some liabilities that are accounted for.
Right. So the fund balance, it shows from the beginning of the year, which is, starting off. And then this is showing that that negative $2 million is where we currently are because we have not received all the income for this year yet. So those numbers are being picked up from page 1 to show the current revenue and the current expenses.
What negative 2 million are you looking at?
Page 1, on the general fund, you see there's a negative $2 million in the last column. That's the $2 million that's showing on page 2, because we haven't received all the money yet.
Yeah, and that's being subtracted from 4.8 million,
Right,
which is 6/30/24 fund balance.
right, because that's where,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's where we ended the
The
year.
year. Yeah.
Right.
And so it's
But-
getting you,
But that doesn't, it's this to this. It's the 4.1. I think we're trying to reconcile the 4.1 to the 2.7. And that would infer that there are liabilities.
I would assume,
It's a timing
It's
difference.
just cash flow.
Yes, it's just the cash flow. It's
It's-
just the showing, so that $2 million is what what the current forecast is, which is the budget, revenues to be received and expenses going out.
I think what it, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what it is, Deborah, is that the difference between the 47 and the 43 is that we've spent for the 47. Those are because the fund balance is the aggregation of your assets and your liabilities. So if we've got, the cash balance is just the cash. So if you've got 4 million in the bank, but we've spent another 1.3 against it, or 1.4 against it, and it's been booked, it's a liability. We don't have, we've got the cash in the bank, but it's already been committed is the point. I think that's what the fund balances reflect what's our asset and liability, including cash.
Right.
So we've got
So our real
43
fund balance is 43
Right,
million,
correct.
it's not 47.
Available,
Because
yeah.
we've got liabilities that haven't been accounted.
That is correct. That
But
is
the
correct.
cash balance is 47.
Correct. And we're
Yes.
getting interest on the
Yes.
47, but we've only got 43 that we have available.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
Well, it's
already
important-
set.
it is important because it kind of goes, I think it goes to the next page here.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to tourism.
Well, can I just ask on this here?
On your cash needs
Yeah,
page.
I think the cash needs page.
John, just back up one if you don't mind.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. So, probably, just for future, and you can take a look and maybe talk offline, but we're putting the cash balances up here. And unless some of these projects here are are part of that liability, we probably should be using fund balances instead of cash balances, because that's really all we've got to spend against these projects.
But I think some of them are a part of the liability.
No, and that's the question.
Yeah.
We don't know because we don't have the detail behind it, but the inference is we have all 47 available, when in fact we might only have 43 available.
And given cash flow, you've got somewhere between 47 and 43 available, without a doubt. In this cash needs page, some of it assumes, and this we'll talk more in the budget workshop, but some of it assumes, more financing pieces, parts, decisions to be made. Still don't have we're carrying the entire balance of the beach nourishment costs that we know that's not an accurate piece at this point, once we nail down with Wild Dunes, the share.
Right, and that may increase as well, because the quotes were kind of dated.
Yeah, we talked about that this morning, going back to Steve and having him get something in writing from him that validates that those numbers are still good.
He didn't have good news.
I didn't think so, but that's okay. We gotta deal with it.
Yeah.
We saved a bunch of money.
What was his, gonna give us a hint, or?
We'll go through it.
About 10% higher.
The nourishment, beach
Yeah.
nourishment project.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
We're gonna get to that.
On our tourism schedules for municipal association, accommodations, we are recording 71,000 for the month of November. Nothing changed on our state accommodation. We have not received any additional funds. We have not received any additional funds for the pass-through. And we have 54,000 for hospitality. This is less than prior year, but we're still at 4% higher than year-to-date than we were previous year. Beach preservation, the same thing, of 71,000 and 81,000 for local option tax that we received. The next page is another breakdown of what you guys requested to show the revenue that was being reported on the cover sheet of page 1 versus the versus the tourism schedules. And all this is showing is the cover sheet has, just for example, the cover sheet has $1.4 million of revenue recorded for Muni A. That revenue is showing on page 32 of your packet and page 34 of your packet. The difference is the interest, and that's what makes up the $1.4 million. Same concept straight across the board. If you have any questions on that, just let me know. I just wanted to show that. I don't really plan to include this each time unless you want to see it, but the biggest difference is interest.
Thanks for putting that together.
You're welcome. For the projects, they're included in the packet, but if you have any questions, just please let me know. And we can go to our timeline if you don't have any other questions at this time. And that's on page
Also,
55.
also in the packet, yeah.
Is it? Okay, sorry. Is it 54?
We added 56.
Oh, because of the short term, okay. Okay. So we went through met with all the committees and have gone through our preliminary requests for our 10-year capital plan. There were a lot of changes this morning in that meeting compared to what's in your packet. So we'll see those in a little bit. But as for the schedule, we need to schedule a budget meeting that is outside of the regular workshop meeting in March.
Yeah.
Any suggestions?
Yeah, I was targeting the 13th, so our regular workshop is the 11th on that Tuesday. And just thinking about doing it, kind of a standalone budget workshop on the 13th. And if you all have preference, I know we've done a number of these at the rec center. Gary. I haven't even checked your schedule to see if that's even a possibility. We'll do that later. On March 13th, if we could do a workshop at the rec center, or if y'all would rather do it here, it doesn't matter. But
I'm out of town that week.
You're out
Yeah.
that week.
I mean, I can do a Zoom, but.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
if you opt to do it here, Environmental Advisory usually meets the second Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Got it. Okay.
What time of day are you thinking?
Just trying to get a day right now. I don't know. So we've got Katie, you're out. Ashley, you're out. Okay. Do that whole
On
week.
that whole week.
Okay.
Block it off for it.
12th.
Huh?
We're on the 12th now.
We're on the 12th?
So we're just throwing out dates. Yep.
Planning at 4, if you meet here
Gotcha.
and you do that time.
Yeah.
I know
that'd be
before
some-
you've done
some
something a little bit
staff.
earlier.
We usually do it earlier in the day.
Usually, yeah.
Well, we're still.
Let's look at the 12th. Maybe is morning good, bad, or indifferent? If we allow time for,
Oh,
What?
ATAX, 11 o'clock.
okay. So that'll be the staff too, so.
Is it possible to do the week before or no? I mean, I
y'all
don't want
gonna
to
be
cause
ready?
trouble, but
That's a busy week with.
Other committee meetings.
Meetings all.
I know we need to, Deborah, I think you're planning to have a first draft of the budget the week of the 3rd, maybe, of March, give or take.
Can ATAX meet upstairs?
Oh, they need to be live streamed. Nicole, that was at 1?
11 a.m.
11?
What if we were at the rec?
Say it again.
If we
If we do it at the rec, yeah. But it's staff too, they need to be at
I have to
ATAX as
attend that
well.
meeting. I would be at the ATAX.
Both of you
meeting.
guys would, yeah.
Will they be done by 2, but then we can't accommodate Ashley?
Right.
We can always
Zoom.
implement a hard stop.
Yeah, so if we did the 12th at noon, maybe, what, Katie's here,
Katie's here.
yeah,
Um,
I think, right?
Presumable?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm supposed to be skiing.
It's our first workshop, there'll be others.
I can probably make it work. Yeah.
I'm skiing too.
Yeah, there'll be others.
Want to say the 12th at noon?
12th at noon, and maybe we'll even feed you lunch just to keep you going. Deborah, is that good?
Fine, yes.
Okay.
I hate to miss
12th at
that.
noon.
12th at noon. Nicole will get you an invite out.
Okay.
And then we can, so we'll have our first draft of the budget, hopefully that week before that, to give us a little bit of time to digest and
Yes.
peruse.
Did you want to have that here or at rec?
Kara, if you don't mind, let's check. You got something?
I'll check.
Okay, we'll check. So one or the other.
Typically, not that many people show up for it.
It's really just kind of a different spot for us to kind of get out of, yeah, get out of our normal spot. Okay.
Okay. So this is just a
yeah.
preliminary
To get to
schedule.
a first draft of the budget.
Yes, this is just a preliminary schedule. We'll adjust accordingly after the 12th.
So you'll have the draft of the budget done in time for the committees then to look at each of their respective budget
That's the Tuesday
reviews
before, yes.
in that first week of March, yeah.
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, we're meeting with department heads this week. So we'll get all the numbers from them and start plugging them in. So the next page, our assumptions of what we have now. I'm sure things will change, but this is what we have now. So after the meeting this morning, the capital request, just kind of big picture, is $11 million. So that's about a $3 million increase from what we requested in this year's budget for FY '26. The largest items are the flood mitigation of $100,000, the city hall upfitting with major repairs of $270,000, and this is just a difference. Police, new truck, ATV, $118,000. The fire department, high water vehicle, $407,000. There are some offsets with Public Works and Rec, not just deferring some expenses. And it's $62,000 for Rec and $78,000 for Public Works. The largest of it all is $2 million for the waterway. That's the delta for what we currently have budgeted. USACE is $225,000. There's $300,000 being deferred for the green space and the parking lot. And then there's another offsetting of $307,000 for deferring the debt service of City Hall. So some of these numbers have changed. The numbers that you're looking at, some of these have changed. But what we are assuming is the same thing that we assumed last year for revenue, for tourism revenues. We will do 95% of the current 12 months. Business licenses and business permits will be at 90% of the most recent 12 months.
Does that include the rental licenses? Because those are separate categories. Where do they run in on the revenue
I think
forecast?
they're in the business licenses.
Including all of them in there?
Technically
Yeah.
a business license.
Personnel costs, we are we're recommending 2.5% COLA and 3% merit. But just to be transparent, the city agreed, wanted to do a wage study every 2 years. So FY '26 would be the year that we would do another wage study. That wage study normally costs between $15,000 and $20,000. We were thinking that maybe we could forego the study and do the 2.5% COLA, since the study was just done 2 years ago and we had seemed to be in line with what other cities were doing at that time, but it's completely council's decision on what you want to do.
Could you, maybe as a to-do for the workshop, maybe benchmark what the state's doing and what some of the other municipalities are doing and their budget assumptions? That way we've got kind of what's going on in the market as far as either COLA, merit, or one or the other, or both. I think there's a bunch of combinations right now. And then also, probably ought to price it out, but I guess we'll do that in the budget.
Yeah, you'll have a dollar amount attached, Scott, to your point.
We're including a new personnel for resilience and beach preservation manager. We're increasing the vacation buyout provisions from $1,000 to $2,000. Right now, employees can sell back $1,000 worth of their vacation. We want to increase that to $2,000. We're going to increase general expenses from, 2.5% to 3%, depending. And then all these other things are just major capital items that are included in the capital plan, which, again, I said some of the things changed. There's one thing that's in there, like the high water. Well, let's do the first. So the FEMA, I think we're just putting another $100,000 in because we're not going to be able to expend all that this fiscal year. We had $550,000 in there for major repairs for City Hall, deferring the major renovation or building of City Hall to FY '27. That has decreased to, I think, $300,000. So,
Yes.
yeah, so $50,000 to renovate upstairs offices or upstairs conference room to reconfigure those into office space for these 2 new people that we're hiring, or possible 2 new people that will be hired, as well as the major repairs that need to happen on this building because they have been forsaken for so long.
Those are unavoidable expenditures. Those are not renovations to make it prettier. Is that correct?
The reconfiguration of that conference room upstairs is just due to, we have a financial person slated to come in. We have this resilience manager in the budget to come in. So this is to kind of get us, and we definitely need direction on what to do with this building long-term, but we can foresee that we're not going to have a new building in the next 2 years.
Correct.
So this is kind of the money to get us through 2 years. If the determination is made by council to stay in this building longer than 2 years, there would be additional work that we would need to do, but we need to have that. We need to kind of close the loop on the new City Hall facility, and then we'll know what to plug into that number. But that is just to get us kind of 2 years of use out of this facility.
So, question. So what happens when the auditors come in, when they do their field work? They usually set up shop in that room?
So we would still have a very small conference room, be kind of similar to the judge's chamber, a very small room that you could have kind of a desk, maybe this size, in that conference area.
Yeah.
The portion by the windows, if you can kind of visualize that, the portion back towards the windows would become office space.
Kind of small.
Yeah, it would be, Planning Commission at one time met up there, Board of Zoning Appeals still meets up there.
Yeah.
They will need to, probably any reasonable sized meeting will need to be in this this room.
Yeah. It's be so small, you gotta go outside and change your mind. Right?
We need more
Makes them get their
space.
work done faster.
I guess so. No more field work, not less.
All right, Deborah.
The other big change is public safety. Public Safety Committee, I think, what is it, Public Safety? They agreed to put one of these items on the budget for now, either the high water vehicle and its equipment that's associated with that, or the $300,000 for the boat, the city's portion of the boat. So only one of those items is on the budget, even though both of them is listed. One of those will be deleted, because at the time, we had both of them on there, but they agreed to do one.
Yeah, both of those have availability challenges, and they both have potential grant funding associated with them. So the direction from that committee was choose the one that's available and hopefully offset by grants. And then defer the next one, whichever one you don't get, defer to the next year.
The Public Works rear loader, we had it on there for perhaps purchase, because initially we said we were going to get two at the same time. Both of them were in the finance, the debt service portion of the budget. We have strike that from paying cash, and we're only getting one at a time, and it will be financed. It's in the finance part of the budget, of the debt service part of the budget. The drainage project between Palm Boulevard, between 38th and 41, is scheduled at $1.8 million. So 500,000 of that is coming from a state grant that we received in FY '24, and 1.25 of that is coming from the state grant that we received this year. Waterway Boulevard, $2 million, that project has increased. We were awarded $980,000. We haven't received it yet, but it has been awarded. So we need to find $1 million to fund that project. The picnic shelter was removed or delayed or deferred based on the committee's suggestions. And resurface city.
Resurface was deferred a year.
That was, 100,000 was deferred, 70,000 will happen for the sidewalks. The reconstruction of 2 tennis courts at 190,000. The Dunes Walkover is continuous expense for the city at 250,000. And then we got an updated number for the USACE. It's a total of 225,000, so 225,000 will be deferred in it to FY '26, because it can't be spent. We can't do all the work this year.
Total of 425.
Total of
Split
425.
between 2 years, 225 and 200, based on their rate of
Timing,
progress.
yeah.
The inlet management project for FY '26 is 350,000. We have funding for the marina dredging at 1.5. We did receive a grant, I think that was 3 years ago now, that we've had that grant, those grant funds. And that number has changed since. So if we, based on this, what we're requesting at $11 million, if we assume revenues are the same at 28.5, which we don't know if they will increase or not, but just big picture. If we assume the same revenues at 28.5, with the current expenses at 26.6, if we increase expenses across the board at 5%, standard 5%, we will be at $27.9 million. The difference of this $3 million capital increase from the previous year puts us at $30.9 million. So big picture shortfall, $2.3 million.
But I thought our assumption on expenses was 2.5, not 5.
Well, with payroll
Yeah, the
and.
biggest part would be payroll.
Yeah,
That's
with
the-
payroll
that's
and
looking at
all the other, just kind of broad,
Okay, we got
Yeah.
a long way to go. Yeah.
broad overview.
Yeah, your assumption is about 5.5% for wages.
Right.
Right.
compensation,
And then the
3%
rest.
For expenses on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you rolled up into your number.
Yes.
So when we have the meeting, we have not, last year we talked about increasing revenues. We have not included any additional revenues or any additional fee expenses, increasing any fees in this budget. If that is something you guys want us to do, give us direction for this first draft. If you want to see fees, expenses, whether they be recreation, business licenses, permits.
We increased
Parking.
parking, so that should be included.
Right, that would be
For sure,
in-
because we've already done that.
Right.
That would be, of course, in,
Yeah.
And there's a whole laundry list of items from the beach ad hoc meeting from a revenue standpoint that we just need to bring to the workshop and see what kind of guidance we want to give on revenue. Because we're assuming very conservative on the revenue
Right.
side,
We always do.
95%, 90%.
And what's the rationale behind that initial assumption? Is that because we've always conservatively budgeted revenue?
On the
or-
revenue side, yeah.
Not
Right.
any kind of thought or science behind it, it's just kind of historically, we've always conservatively budgeted.
Well, I mean, the 90%, particularly on the business license and permits, you know, the last few years, it's kind of been up and down. This year is a great year, but.
yeah, this year's a great year.
It's just a tough one to, so if you do 90%, you're hopefully leveling out some of the spikes here or
But
there.
even on the tourism stuff, I mean, we're showing about a 8%
across the board.
increase year to year, and we're showing 95% of that
Mm-hmm.
as a budget, I mean.
Well, it's not just us. It's,
Yeah.
You know, a lot of governmental units are very conservative. They underestimate the revenues and the expenses are kept the same. It's just conservative budgeting.
And I think, John, to your point, you know, we've had the last, 2, 3, 4 years, I guess, you know, we've had somewhere between $1 million and a $2 million excess at the end of the year, and some of that's driven certainly by very conservative revenue, pretty realistic expense side.
Yeah.
And we can easily, I mean, it wouldn't, I don't think hurt any of our feelings to just match your revenue numbers year over year, because we had a little bit of downturn in '24. Looks like we're leveling back out in '25 from a tourism revenue anyway. It's a reassessment year for property taxes.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be something, so.
The
We had-
one thing we could increase, though, is we're increasing the parking rates by 30%.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
our-
take
that's
this
in.
year plus
Yeah.
30%, you will get, that's a legitimate number to still put it at 90.
Well, my initial
90%
thought is
budget.
to stay with what we've always done. And,
Yeah, I think let's see the first draft.
right,
Yeah.
do whatever say.
We can always do two scenarios, that's pretty
Absolutely.
simple.
Yeah.
We've seen an increase in, I think, business license and rental license. Are we requiring the documentation on all the licenses now? Both the rental properties and the business licenses and the permitting, all that stuff?
Not on standard business licenses, just on the short-term rentals.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't do the business licenses?
Well, sheer volume of work, I think, at this, I mean, we specifically hired an additional, well, we did, we hired an additional person to do the short-term rental kind of process and application process. I think if we wanted to, and it has, that particular component of it has been.
Did it upload?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of quadrupled the time associated with a license application, because that's the rest of it was all kind of just checking boxes. That's the one that needs scrutiny. So it would be a lift from a personnel standpoint.
We talked about this, you and I.
Yeah. Well, so our discussion was specifically what we're doing for short-term rentals. I think Scott's asking is, are we going to do
Broader.
that for all
I
of
mean,
them?
what if we got a temp in for, it's basically paper processing, and I think, isn't it? Or, I don't know, Deborah, you'd have to tell me or whatever, I mean. Or does that in a
So
different
that's
group?
not-
or-
Yeah, that's a different group.
Okay.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
a-
I think it's identifying, I mean, I think it,
I mean, it's a $2 million line item, and I'm wondering if we're on the trust me method, I don't know, if it were me, I'd require documentation. Just, I don't know why we're singling out the short-term rental people. I think we should have, in any business license, I have to submit my revenues, and would be happy to put my Schedule C out or
I don't
whatever.
know if Charleston County does that. I mean, I don't
For
know if the
business
county
license?
does that for business licenses. I don't think you have to, I don't think you have to prove it.
Mount Pleasant does not.
Yeah, I don't think you
They
have
do
to
not?
prove.
Okay. No.
Not Charleston, I know Charleston County doesn't.
That would, people start screaming, because you always go small businesses, and how do you do it? It would be a mess.
Well, there's a lot of business licenses, people that don't live on the island or don't have a location on the island. There's an awful lot of those, plus the businesses that are on the island.
yeah, I'm not sure how. I
We
mean,
talked
one-
about the statement at the bottom, is like on tax return,
Yeah.
under penalty of perjury.
Yeah, that's,
You know,
I mean, that's part
you
of
don't.
the, part of
The
the.
audit, the federal government doesn't audit, every single tax return. It's set up to be, we're supposed to voluntarily report our income, wink, wink, right? But, but you'd have that at the bottom, that's the catch-all of every tax return, is like under penalty of perjury. I mean, these documents are true and accurate.
But we've also had conversations about doing some spot checking, revenue matches and such, and just, well, we just don't have staff
Yeah,
to pull
the
that off
county
right now.
does do that.
Yeah.
And they don't kind of get all the tax documentation in the front end, but they do spot check, which maybe that would be maybe doing more of that would be a good first step to just see how much we are losing on kind of the average.
Because Scott, I bet you could take the top 10 businesses on this island and cover a significant amount of the revenue
amount of
side.
dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that including contractors that are off the island? There's an awful lot of money there.
No, I think you're just talking about brick and mortar on this island.
Well,
As a
you
start.
just said all businesses.
Well, just as a start to spot check it. I mean, if that's where we started, I mean, I'd start with brick and mortar on the island, personally.
I mean, it just needs to be random and
Right.
just enough to keep people honest. I mean,
Yeah, that's how, when the county does it, it's
That's why the
complete.
IRS doesn't, it's the same thing.
They claim it's completely random. They do take I mean, if there's an additional payment law, if the county were to do it for us, they would take a portion of the revenue in exchange for doing the service. So that's
Be
that's
interesting to
bad.
see what the proposal is.
Yeah.
It's a-
Because if you get,
I think
if you
they
get the
still do
payback.
that. That used to be a service they were willing to provide us. I haven't heard that
If they're
recently.
still,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure they still do that, but we could certainly look into that.
Just an idea.
Thank you, Deborah.
Okay.
Projects, Douglas, on,
So, we did have the 10-year,
oh, I'm sorry.
We got
Capital plan?
we got a different agenda item.
Yeah, Douglas, I'm sorry, we've got a procurement item that you got to report out on for us, the
well, we also have the
VC3.
10-year capital plan,
Yeah.
if you want it.
On my side? Yeah.
I was gonna, I mean, that's gonna
You-
fold
you
into our
wanna-
first draft.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, those plans have been through, each of them has been through their respective
Mm-hmm.
committees, so each of you has probably seen some version of one of those, and we have them all compiled, still cleaning
In
them
the
up. and
packet,
we'll-
yeah.
We'll have them ready for you for the workshop.
Okay. Deborah, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Sorry, Douglas, I skipped over the procurement piece.
Yep,
that,
that is that actually was an emergency replacement that we had to do with a battery and the backup battery for our servers, $12,000. The procurement ordinance requires that we just report that to you, so that's the purpose of that being on your agenda. Capital projects, we're ready for that?
Yep, thank you.
There has been a lot going on the multi-use path. As you all know and recall from last month, Wild Dunes is just about to start their work on the golf course. We've been coordinating closely with them, now kind of specifically ironing out the details of how the reimbursement's going to work. It's going to be a contract between Wild Dunes and the contractor. We're going to repay them. We're going to reimburse Wild Dunes as the billing comes in. So we're working through that. Also working through easements on the golf course for long-term maintenance. If a storm comes through, does damage on their golf course, that would be incumbent on us to fix the portions of it that are flood control related. So we're going through those details. Those will come back to you in the form of agreements and easements to be considered at a future date. Phase 4, Palm Boulevard drainage at 38th and 41st. Those permits are submitted for, and we should have those back very soon, anticipating that construction to begin fall of 2025. Sea level rise adaptation plan, we have that plan in hand now, and they are scheduled to be at your next workshop. IOP Marina, Public Dock, and Green Space, I think if it's okay with everybody, we will put the public dock in the completed category and strike that from your report.
Is that one on the community enrichment? Can we take something?
Take one off of there too, all the plans. We are still working through the green space, and the Public Facilities Committee met this morning, discussed a proposal. Is it Katie Q R?
P.
P. We're at P.
Don't exaggerate, Douglas.
So that's going to be coming to your regular council meeting as a suggestion from the Public Facilities Committee. Marina dredging, those applications are in. They're currently out for public comment, waiting for comments on those. Whatever comments we receive, if any, our engineers will respond to those and keep those permits in motion.
Douglas, how long is the public comment
I think it's
section open?
I think it's 30 days. There was a little bit of a coordination hiccup, and I think it may have gotten delayed because one wasn't in sync with the other. So,
but it's out there now?
Yes, it's out there now. Yep. The county park access, that is, we have a contractor. We had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor, the county park, and our city staff. We are working through ironing out some details there with the contractor. He anticipates beginning potentially as early as next week, end of next week.
Still no offer of additional funding from the county?
No, they have not. No.
They're contributing whatever they wanted. I mean, what their ask was, right?
Yes, there is a portion of landscaping and an additional replacement of they call it a clatter bridge that they are covering. So they are covering portions of it, but they're not agreeing to fund additional portions to it. Beach access, path improvements, we now have 2 completely done, 1 very close to kind of what I would call substantially complete at 36A, and then 26A is under construction now. Beach maintenance and restoration, you will recall at your last council meeting, we talked about the Beechwood East portion is just continuing to get hit. We've been kind of lucky with our lower tides here for really a couple of months. Unfortunately, we did get a higher tide last night, early this morning. And the Beechwood East area is still just continuing to take a hit. There's a break in the shoals that's kind of funneling the water right in on them. You all approved up to 100 bags at your last month meeting. 50 of those have been installed. We ordered the additional 50 to be installed today, so they will begin that probably this week, maybe early next week. And it could be that you all are requested additional bags at your council meeting. So we're just watching that and responding as best we can. City Hall renovation, we talked a little bit about that. This is kind of rippling through our budget and everything else. We have, the architects and the Trident, the construction group that we've had engaged for this project, have been reaching out about just kind of closing that loop, getting back to this group. You all have, seems like every meeting you have a major kind of presentation and thing to work through. So we've been trying to find a good spot in your calendar to have them back. And I think we're thinking maybe April, May time to have that discussion. Undergrounding power lines, we had a very good meeting this morning with Dominion, with the Public Facilities Group. I think we got some good takeaways about what our potential options could be and how we could organize that. So I would say that's a project that Public Facilities Group is working with and getting information directly from Dominion and working that through. SCDOT, Palm Boulevard, nothing to report there. 21st Avenue sidewalk extension, we have been talking with the county. They are continuing to tell us that they should have bid. I don't think they're out for bid yet, but they're should be any minute out for bid. They are keeping May 31st on their calendar as a target to be completed by. I think that's all I have on capital projects, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Douglas. Questions? No. Next item, we hit A1 under livability. 2 is discussion of changes to the PCI contract. Douglas?
Yeah, so we had a very good, Mac, myself, and Jack with PCI had a very good, and Chief Cornett, very good conversation about that contract amendment. We do anticipate MAC having a revised agreement before you all at your council meeting to consider. It will adjust the arrangement with them, and that seems to be coming to you all without any issue. I would say that you will have that second reading of an ordinance also on your agenda for later this month. We will add that last month you all changed the fees by resolution. In our ordinance work, we realized that we missed that some of those fees are in the ordinance. So there will be an additional amendment to be made at second reading to change those fees to mirror what you all have already done with your resolution.
Douglas, can we get a financial forecast or analysis of the change in structure of the agreement?
Yes.
And what that impact is?
We have that now. If we had done this agreement last year, how it would have impacted our revenues. And it was very much a revenue neutral change. So, but we'll provide that to you.
I'd like to see also a year-to-year change in revenue from parking, net revenue for us. What it was before we hired our consultant and after.
Douglas, there's still no more discussion about paid parking on the Front Beach Commercial District from November 1st through February 28th. There's no discussion
Not that, no.
That wasn't in the
Not-
resolution.
No. So year-to-year comparison and just the
Before and after
change of the,
PCL net for us.
got it.
So the next item is really just for heads up. It'll be in a resolution coming at the end of the month for the Front Beach Fest.
Yeah, and I would just add that there would also be the Lovelo, be almost the same resolution.
Just
You will have to.
later in the year, yeah.
You will have to approve those as city-sponsored events to close down the road and allow alcohol in the road. So we'll put both of those at your next
Okay.
council packet.
How proactive that is.
Look at that.
February for November.
Yeah?
If there's anything else, I didn't mean to cut you
No.
off on the contract
No.
if you had
No,
something else.
that's it.
Environmental, no items. Public services, no item. Personnel, update of search for city administrator. Final interviews are happening this Thursday. On Wednesday and Thursday, there's breakfast, lunches, dinners lined up with department heads. Thank you all for doing that. And then interviews will happen on Thursday from 10 to 1, I think is on your calendar. 10 to 2, thank you. Yeah, 'cause we have a debrief hour. So that will happen this Thursday. Discussion of,
Wait, question?
Yep.
So there has been no offer made for any of the candidates for city administrator?
not by me, did you do one?
No, I did not. I just want to make sure that the public is aware of that.
No offers out
Yeah,
there.
I've got a quick question,
Yep.
too. We got this inbound email. It says, in order to ensure that all council members have the opportunity to ask a question, we invite each of you to prepare one question you'd like to ask. Please email your question to me by Monday, and I'll compile the list to resolve any potential duplicates should that occur. Are we going to be asking one question for the interviews? Is that what the intention is? I mean,
That's the intention.
so
I mean,
we're
but
hiring
there-
the CEO of our $25 million entity with 100 employees, and we get to ask one question.
It'll flow. You know better. You know that.
I'm not familiar with this kind of a structure. and it
Well, we're just
doesn't-
trying to give
doesn't strike
9
me as an
voices.
interview. Yeah.
We're trying to give 9 voices an equal opportunity to ask questions.
What if,
One question.
what if the one question we submit is a duplicate?
She said
She
she
just
would
said
correct
she would
that.
cut out duplicates. I mean,
And then you don't get a question?
So,
it'll be a
Yeah,
free-flowing to some extent, because there'll be an answer come up where I'm sure somebody will need to ask, just like we did in the admin committee. Hey, you said X, give us a little more detail on it. But the original structure was just to be sure everybody had a voice.
As I
in the room.
understood it, it was to ask each of us to submit a question, and then there was going to be, the search company, I guess, was going to go through and make sure there wasn't redundancies in the
That's what
questions.
Scott just said.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think it's an hour per candidate.
Yeah.
I think there's also, they're gonna do a short, presentation on a 90-day plan.
Yeah.
Which would probably take, I don't know, I think we should probably limit them to 10 minutes.
I think we've told them 10 to 15 minutes for that
Yeah,
piece
so
of it.
that leaves us to say 45 minutes to go through 9 questions, so they're gonna be pretty short, and it's gonna be pretty quick. I just asked, it's something for us to consider if anybody feels uncomfortable, how they would get more time with a candidate. I don't know, I don't know if there's an answer here, but there could be some individual time they spend with them, or whatever it takes to get comfortable that they've got the right questions answered
Yeah.
after the meeting.
I mean, we need to be, just like with admin committee, as structured as we possibly can. So, I mean, I think 45 minutes will be fine, and I think it'll allow for free flow
Okay.
of follow-ups.
Should we, I mean, I haven't submitted yet, so could I do a first priority, second priority question, let them choose?
Oh, Scott, what was her deadline?
I understand.
Monday.
why we're doing
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I'm just kind of, when you're interviewing somebody, the questions come up during the conversation, and I just feel like, again, this is such an important position, and we've got, we know Douglas as a candidate. The other 3, we've had absolutely zero exposure to. And, I've never had an interview that I've ever given or attended where I've been limited to one question. It just seems to me like, how are we going to have a fair and level playing field for vetting out all of these candidates when we meet them first time, for the first time.
I sent Kristen an email and sort of asked a similar question. She said that their intention is to let everyone ask at least one question, and she said that she's sure they'll have more time for follow-up questions from whoever has them. So I'm
I mean, it's
assuming
tough to have a
we have
panel of 9.
plenty of
No, I
time
get
to
that, yeah.
come up with questions on the fly, you know?
Couple of
I've
things.
done, go, I'm sorry, Jimmy.
Couple of things. I'm sure people aren't going to get upset if we run over, for one thing. And I specifically ask of the company that's doing the search for us that we limit the questions and the meetings to the formal meetings of the committee and also the full council. In other words, we don't have outside meetings. And then that would open up to where other people could schedule meetings with these candidates. And we need to have a sense of order and a process with this. I'm on that admin committee, and I can't think of any more questions I would have for 3 of them that I've already interviewed via Zoom.
Which I think will allow for
Will allow
additional
for more
follow-up.
But there's nothing. Nobody's going to stop them and say, "Oh, it's over in the end of an hour." So I don't think that it's really going to be that much of a problem. I just don't. I just do not want a lot of outside interviews going on that everybody wouldn't have a chance to participate. All the candidates.
Rusty?
Well, I've interviewed hundreds of people in my career, my past career. It's plenty of time. You're going to be asking open-ended questions. People have a chance to follow up. I submitted 2 questions to the group, you know, in no order of priority. I just said, if this one doesn't work out, here's another one I would ask. I don't think we're going to have a problem myself.
Douglas. Next item, this is a discussion of description, pay grade requirements for future financial position. This came through admin committee as well this past week or week before.
Yep, so I would just say that this one, it's kind of bounced around a little bit with the description, the pay grade, between staff and the committee. And we think that this job description and the functions and the pay grade did go up from a G7 to a G8. The committee felt like with this line of work that to really get a good candidate, it would need to pay a little more. So this is seems to be a good compromise between what the staff believes they need and what the council's indicated that they wanted.
And John, real quick, I know you asked the question at admin. This is obviously the exact same version you saw at admin committee. There's been a council, legal counsel has looked at it, and there is a couple of changes on the opening paragraph that you had questioned specifically.
Yep. Any other questions on that, or any additional detail needed on that? I think we're at a point where we're ready to start putting this out.
Post it out there.
Yep,
Yeah.
getting candidates.
Anything on either of the personnel items, any follow-up, Scott? I don't want to cut you off, but I really think we'll be, because I'm kind of where Jimmy is. I mean, John's on the committee too. We've kind of asked all these questions. I think it's going to open it up for you guys to let you have more time to ask some questions, Jim.
I apologize because I was acting as if I would be the only interviewer, and that's not the way it is. Are we asking the candidates the same question so that the search committee is going to make a list of 9 questions that each candidate will have to answer?
You're trying to keep as similar a structure as you can, which is what we did in the admin committee. I mean, it was, I would say 80%.
Yeah, it's not to say that
Structure,
somebody
yeah.
answers in a certain way and you have a follow-up for one that you wouldn't have a follow-up for.
Absolutely.
another, But generally, you kind of stick around the same category.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that
I
they
mean,
have different backgrounds.
John or Jimmy, I think about 80% of our structure was the same through all the 5 finalist interviews. That help, Jan, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next item for discussion, engaging a federal lobbyist, again, at the admin committee. It was a busy admin committee. We had proposals from 3 different lobbyist firms, reps from the Water and Sewer Commission participated with us, since we'll be sharing that cost in some form or fashion. We narrowed that down to 2. And the admin committee, I think on our March 4th meeting, if I remember right, we'll have those 2 firms give a presentation to that committee, and then that committee will bring a recommendation to council at some point.
I'd just like to make one comment, and that is the MASC email that they sent out this week informs us that they are now doing federal lobbying. And I think we need to certainly be aware of what they're doing and how our activity would mesh with theirs. And I'm much more confident about it knowing that MASC is doing some preliminary work before we go up there. It'll be easier. We'll get more bang for our buck.
Good point, but we have very specific needs
Yeah, but they can.
that are unique.
John or Jimmy, anything else to add from that?
No.
Good. Next item, discussion of Beach Preservation Committee guidelines. We had looked at this also in the admin committee and had made some tweaks. The Beach Ad Hoc Preservation Group looked at it last Friday and had some tweaks. And I think we were on a pretty aggressive timeline to get this thing finalized, get people applied, run it through the admin committee, and get it staffed. Conversation Friday, and Scott, Katie, correct me if you need to, but conversation Friday with the Beach Ad Hoc meeting, we're talking about this second opinion. This group is more than knee-deep in the topic and the research, and the last year's worth of work is to let that group finalize the scope on the second opinion, look at the RFQs that'll come in on the, whatever we wind up with, 12 or 10 different firms for the RFQ, and really let that group select that second opinion company before we stand up the new committee. Because we were, like I said, we were on a pretty aggressive path to get this done by March. Scott or Katie, is that fair?
Yeah, I think it was, let that group stay together through that second opinion process.
Yeah, it's
so-
so deep. I mean, they're so deep in the process.
So Mayor,
Yeah.
I don't know if your description had the current temporary committee quitting once the RFQs were responded to and we had somebody engaged, but I understood it that that group would stay on until
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
consultant completely wrapped his
If I
opinion.
misspoke, yes. Let them pick the second opinion company, firm.
And then have them do the report, and then we would get the report back. Yeah. And then it goes to council.
The ad hoc group
Yes.
would work through receiving the report, working with that consultant to
Yep.
kind of finalize the reporting of the chosen second
And
opinion.
the thought
firm.
is that that would be in the June timeframe for all that to
I
take
think we
place?
talked May, June.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Because I think, I mean, the RFQ could happen really quick. Once you narrow down the firms.
So that has
Yeah.
this group not being enacted really till
They were
June.
so excited about it too, weren't they?
To continue for 3 more months.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have bunt cakes for them. Maybe that was the issue.
No bows, no bunting.
Mayor, are we open to discuss a little bit about the general conditions that were recommended on the Beach Preservation Committee, or is that premature?
I think it's a little premature.
Okay,
But-
Can we wait until,
I just wanted to bring up something about membership, but
Yeah.
I can do that later if
Hang
need be.
on to those notes, if you're okay with that. Next item, legislative report. Are you all getting the newsletter from our current state lobbyist firm? Comes out every Monday-ish?
Nope.
Whoa. I've been reading it cover to cover. I think I was just assuming everybody was getting it. I'll make sure they add you to the
what's
list.
it come under?
It's from,
The firm?
well, it's from the new guy. Mims is his last, Campbell, I think it's Campbell Mims. Can't remember his last
I don't know.
name. So like you would read it anyway.
I was
I'll
just
read
making
it.
sure, because I mean, there's a decent amount of junk that we get.
Yeah, I
was
know.
just making sure that I wasn't.
Well, and now,
Did I
I mean,
just
have you downloaded the new iOS? So you wind up with like 5 mailboxes.
it's-
I can't stand
it's
it
a problem.
personally, but
Yeah.
there is a way to, I did find out today, there's a way to do
Get rid of
all
it.
mail. Yeah, so anyway, I'll make sure they add, but the one thing that was on this Monday's newsletter is the liquor liability work that's happening in the House and the Senate. So there's 2 different bills. It is progressing, and there's no business owners here tonight, but I know I've had a couple ask me about it, of, where we stand. Are we pushing? Are we hitting our lobbyists with it? So I'll forward out the one that just came out Monday and make sure they add all of you guys to the list. But that was really the highlight to me for this one, was that there is action. There's two bills, one in each house. So hopefully they'll get some traction on that and get that one fixed.
What are they trying to do?
Well, right now, in theory, there's been bars go out of business because of the insurance cost with the joint and several liability rules that are currently on the books. I guess the extreme of that was what happened in Folly, with the golf cart and death. So they're trying to, I'm not sure what either bill does, because I haven't read the bills, but I know they're trying to lessen the burden on a small business some way, shape, or form. Yeah, and at the same time, we've had insurance companies, dropping coverages, and it's been kind of a bad, perfect storm for sure for a small business, especially a small bar business. So I'll forward that to you guys. Our next workshop is March 11th. There being no further business.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6:54 off record.
This is a start. I don't think this is all.
See? You didn't ask.
Yeah.
I told you. They've already asked us.
I keep hearing her voice now.
Thank you, Scott.
Listen to me.
I don't have any faith in your projections.
Listen to me. Didn't ask me
Thank you very much.
3 hours.